You're watching Wellness Woman with your host, Linus Wood Wellness, here on New Earth International.
Hi everyone, this is Linus Woods Mullins with PraiseWorks Health and Wellness and Wellness Woman 40 and Beyond e-magazine. It's so great to see you today. You know, I love doing my radio show, but I have a special love for doing a show where I can actually see you kind of sort of, you can see me and our guests. And many thanks to the wonderful Rachel Love, my producer, and the owner of New Earth International Network. I just love the work that she's doing. And please take time to take a look at all of her shows. And also, we're running on iHeartRadio, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Spreaker. You can find us lots of different places. Just Google Wellness Woman, and hopefully the show will start coming up. Tell friends about it. This show is really for you. I like the idea of the show because it's all about women who not only are on a journey of wellness, but have been able to gather some wisdom that they're sharing with you, and also have a little bit of inspiration to share with all of you. I think that life these days is pretty tough. No matter how well things might be going for you personally, you probably know others who are going through something. And it helps to know that you're not the only one out there, that we all are kind of in this together, and to be able to inspire each other, support each other, and to impart a bit of wisdom into your lives. And while I am a proponent and a lover of wellness for women over 40, this is for all women. I really do believe that us older women, me being 59 as of last week, that we really have a responsibility to share our wit and our wisdom with those younger millennials too. So for those of you who are younger, share this show because there's going to be a lot of people who might be older than you, maybe some that your age, but we really want to share with you those things that we feel will help you survive this journey that you're on, because we're all on a journey. And today I have with me a fellow journeyer, a fellow wellness woman, FRAN Bontempo. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay, and she has been on my shows. She's been on with me on the Wellness Journey. She's been on my Blab show, and now here she is on the Wellness Woman show. And we're going to be talking about something that I kind of alluded to earlier about wit and wisdom and wellness, why it's important. Mary Fran has written some fantastic books that are going to make you want to laugh a little bit and kind of give some reflection to. Mary Fran, tell us a little bit about you, the books that you have written, and why you're so passionate about the need for humor in our lives.
Well, I started off as a journalist, as a writer, and I had a number of columns in local magazines and newspapers and things like that. And as I got a little bit older, things started to change in many, many different ways, as they do. But what ended up happening with me was I lost the newspaper jobs because of the advent of the internet. And found that I needed to, plus I was turning 50. The economy was tanking, so my family business was also kind of teetering, in not a good place. And probably not probably, but most disturbing of all, I have a son who at the time was dealing with some very serious addiction and alcohol issues. He's doing incredibly well now, thank God, but at that time, I was just in this really kind of a downward spiral. And I thought, I can either live in this place or I can figure out how not to live in this place. So from that sort of I started on sort of this reinvention. And I found what you find, that the more I shared my experiences, I went on the internet and I created the blog, Not Ready for Granny Panties. And the more I shared with people, as you found, the more I realized that we are all in this together. And we all kind of have the same story with different details. But I think the thing that I learned most of all through all of that darkness was that you need to walk towards the light. You need to find that humor. You need to find that lightness, even in the most difficult of circumstances. And it can really pull you out of it.
Yes, that's true. I have learned to laugh probably at myself and not to take myself so seriously, not to take life so seriously. I've been on a 7-year journey, as you know, with being an entrepreneur and with my radio shows and magazines, and now this video show and books and just all kinds of things that I have done. And through it all, I have had to maintain a sense of humor. I mean, just right now, before we started the show, I couldn't quite, and even now I'm bugging myself. I do have something on, and this is not a bra. This okay. And I feel like, I look like, why did you have a bra strap on? Well, I do. This is part of my shirt, okay? And I have black underneath because I have a black skirt. So I just want you to know. Okay. So you have to have a sense of humor about some of these things because we take ourselves so seriously. And I don't know about you, but I know all the different voices in my head, some of them just aren't what's true. There is one voice in our head that is true, and that's our intuition. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on. But, those other voices, many of them are negative nannies. And they are just going on, and you don't even have to answer. They answer each other. And I think sometimes humor, laughing at ourselves, and sometimes our circumstances, are things that really kind of carry us through. And I love your book. What made you decide to write, first of all, the Granny Panty book? Tell them a little bit about that book and what it's about and why you decided to write it.
Well, as I said, I was turning 50 at the time, and that number just really kind of hit you right between the eyes because
I don't know what 60 is going to do to me then.
I know, right? I can't even stand thinking about it. But at the time, it was just like, oh my gosh. And I mean, when I was a kid, 50, I thought people were half dead when they were 50.
I know.
Which maybe we are technically, but let's not go there. But I think I was having a conversation with a friend at one time about all of the stuff that was going on. And at one point I just said, oh gosh, I'm so not ready for granny panties. And then I went, being the writer and having that, the words always playing around in your mind, I thought, oh, there is something there. And just in kind of playing with those words, I thought, there is something, and as you just said, there's something about a couple of things. The humor in aging, you just kind of have to, I mean, God willing it happens, because the alternative is you're dead. So God willing, we age. So we need to find a way to do it with some levity and some lightness and to appreciate what we're going through. The other thing that struck me about what you were saying was the voices in our heads. And that's the other thing that I try to talk to women about. I try to help them tame what I call the self-talk beast. Because we do have all these voices in our heads. And especially as we get older, I think we don't give ourselves enough credit for where we've been, which is where the wisdom part comes in. And you can relay those stories in a way that's not ponderous, and you add a little wit to it, and it's really affirming for our journeys and for sharing with other people and the younger generation.
Why do you think we as women, and I'm saying we as women because I think this is pretty much all women have this in common, why are we so hard on ourselves? Why is it that we suffer from this I'm not quite good enough syndrome?
I think a big part of it is that we do so much. We do so much every single day. I mean, think of the hats that you wear every single day of your life. And the unfortunate side effect of that is that we don't get to do much perfectly. And nobody does. We expect that of ourselves. So because we can't do everything perfectly, we tend to judge ourselves as kind of, I don't want to say failures, but never quite measuring up. And in fact, the second book that I wrote, The Woman's Book of Dirty Words, one of the dirty words is fine, because we can't accept fine. Fine has suddenly become a failure or a flop. And we need to learn to recognize that not only have we done most of the things we've had to do and it's been fine, but it's pretty fabulous when you think about your life experiences and what you've gone through to get to this point and be still standing. We really need to be patting ourselves on the back, but we don't give ourselves enough credit for where we've been and the fact that we're still standing.
That's very true. I am definitely guilty. I mean, many of the things I talk about when it comes to stress and relaxation and working out and eating right, I talk about those things because those are things I'm constantly thinking about for myself, things that I know I need to be doing. I mean, probably the best customer for PraiseWorks and Wellness Woman is myself.
Absolutely.
Many of the things that I've learned have been apropos for me in my life. And one thing that I have learned, especially over the last 2 or 3 years in particular is that nothing lasts forever. Nothing. The misery that you go through, the problems and challenges that you're confronted with, they don't last. The fact that you're still here means that you survived it. If you're listening to this show or looking at this show, that means you have survived whatever it was that you were upset about a year ago or even yesterday or 5 minutes ago. And the other thing is that, this too shall pass. It doesn't last forever, including even happiness. So therefore, if you know that the misery's not going to last forever, and the happiness may not last forever either, you want to be somewhere in the meantime kind of think of mind and learning to be present and learning to really enjoy this moment in time. Because one thing I can guarantee you is this moment in time will never come again the way it is. So why not go ahead and pull out of it that joy? Instead of thinking so much about what am I going to do after this interview? Why didn't I get my scenery together before this interview? Instead of dealing with the past and dealing with what might or might not happen in the future, why not just stay right where you are right now in this moment in time and enjoy it?
And I think it's really hard for us to do that. It's funny because I'm just reminded of some entertainers now who are stopping shows when people pull out cell phones and video the show, as opposed to enjoying the moment of being there. Because as you said, those moments don't come again. And I really am trying to do that same thing because time is just going by so quickly that if you can sort of capture those little moments, first of all, it is making you present, but also it's allowing you to find the joy that's in the least little thing. One of my favorite things to do in the summertime, and this is going to sound crazy, but is to take like fresh Jersey peaches. They're so beautiful, the color of them and the smell, and just cut them up and just in that moment, looking at that beautiful thing of nature, you just get that little bit of joy and that little sense of peace that comes from, here is this beautiful thing that I'm able to partake of. And then, you go on to your next bit of crazy.
Right.
But in those little moments can really feed you in bigger ways.
Why do you think that humor is so important when it comes to our overall wellness?
Well, it's funny when you were talking about a few minutes ago about how you try to laugh. And I was thinking to myself, well, I laugh every day too. Half the time it's part hysteria because I'm in the midst of some frenzy. But when you step back and you do think about the absurdity of a lot of the things that we go through, there is humor to be found in everything. And in not taking ourselves so seriously, we put things in perspective. And that is a huge thing when you're looking upon this life of yours, to be able to have perspective on where you've been, where you are, where you're going, and being able to laugh at even some of and I call it black humor because, again, when my son was going through some of his terrible, terrible things, even in that time, we would be laughing about things because you can't live in darkness all the time. You just can't. It's soul crushing.
Yeah, it is.
Finding that little bit of humor, to my mind, humor equals light.
Yes.
And we need that. We just need it. So it's a way to, without getting too heavy-handed and thinking about, the spirituality of it, which we all are thinking of on some level, but without getting too heavy-handed, just laughing brings you into that place naturally.
Yeah, it does. For those of us who are hormonal, which would probably be a great many of us, whether you're 25 or 65,
AKA
have that hormone thing going on. Yes. And I find that laughter or things that cause laughter get the endorphins going, those happy hormones, which are so critical. They really are. And for those of you out there who have decided to be celibate for whatever reason, don't want to go down that lane, but for whatever the reason is, okay, and you're not having the same kind of hormones you used to have when you were having sex, whatever, do you know a good belly laugh sometimes gets the same kind of hormones going as an orgasm? And I have to tell you that these hormones are important for women when it comes to being well. I can almost tell now women that, this sounds so funny, either they're not laughing enough or they're not having orgasms. I don't know which one it is. But they look drawn.
Yes.
And after a while, you begin to have this sternness about you. because you're not smiling. You're not recognizing the joy in your life. You're not getting those endorphins going. And I do know that that limits your lifespan. So if you're interested in living a long time, if you're interested in, being well during this lifetime, you got to find reasons to laugh and to have joy.
You do. And I think that the larger world is recognizing that too, when now that they're talking about play really more for adults. You have these adult coloring books and things like that. Take us back to our childhood in some fundamental ways. I mean, I am a grandmother now, which I still can't even believe I say those words, but my granddaughter is going to be 2. And when I spend Wednesdays with her, and she's just so present and so in the moment. And when she giggles and she laughs, there's such a purity about it. That when we allow ourselves to get to that point, to just laugh with abandon and to just find humor and lightness and play, it just connects us into all those really important things that, we probably had before we got here in heaven or whatever, and we lose as we move away from our.
Yes, we do. That's right. You did become a grandmother this year. Congratulations.
I did. I mean, it's been phenomenal, and it's been life-changing in that regard, because again, it has helped me to be in that moment. I mean, when I'm watching this child and I'm with her, there's no what happened 5 minutes ago. There's no what's next. There's an ant. Let's look at the ant. Whatever's in front of your face, and there's something so refreshing about that.
Now, how old is your grandchild?
Pardon me?
How old is she?
She will be 2. Yeah, she'll be 2.
Okay. Now, last year, I had 2 grandchildren in 1 year. I had a grandson who's 10, and then I had these other 2 little precious jewels. One is 6 months, and the other one is 16, almost 17 months.
I was going to say, he's really good age to my granddaughter, because we shared that when they went.
That's right. And it really does add a special joy to your life when you're dealing with the wonders of a new being that's in this world, who's so fascinated with everything. My 17-month-old grandson will stare at this painting that my daughter has in her home. I don't know what it is about this painting. So finally, let me check out and see what is it that he finds such joy. And sometimes it's the angels that he's looking at. So one day, I turned around and I looked at this. I said, Daddy, what is it that you see in this painting that just brings you so much joy? And do you know, I allowed myself to see that painting through the eyes of a baby, 17 months. And I could see it was all the brilliant colors and the textures and all those different things that I just kind of overlooked. I've seen that painting before, just overlook it. And that's kind of how life is as we get older. We take a lot of things for granted. We don't really engage, in what's going on around us.
I think that we obviously, and it's natural, we bring our life experiences to everything. And the consequence of that is that we are constantly either judging things or putting things in boxes or in order, or somehow trying to fit them into what we know. And when you give into a sense of joy, and when you give into a sense of laughter, you kind of wipe that stuff away. And you can just be, again, in that moment without pretense and enjoying something just for what it is. And that's just so important. It's, as you said earlier, it's important we talk to, women 40 and beyond, but, I talk to women all the time, and it's the younger women are saying to me, we need to hear this.
Yes, they do. Just recently, I have millennial daughters, ages 31 to 24, and I talk with them all the time, to Noxium, every day, and text, tweet, phone mail, email, every day.
The same way.
Exactly. And I'm grateful for that, because I know some people have children my children's age, and they don't speak to them that often. But one of the things that they tell me all the time is how stressed out they're feeling, how overwhelmed they're feeling, how they are feeling the need to not just achieve, but be really successful, and how they don't feel like they have enough time before they know it. And I'm looking at them and I'm thinking, my goodness, you don't think you have enough time at 20. What the heck are you thinking about me at 59? Exactly. But it's really interesting. So I always, try to bring them back to what really counts in life. But if you can learn that at that age, you know, in the 20s and 30s, boy, you're going to have a fantastic experience in this life, because I didn't really learn that until I was in my 50s, learning how to just really just be in the moment and not worry so much about the future or the past. I mean, I had an anxiety disorder before I could flip the script and begin to, you know, and I see my daughters are going down that same path. I'm just so glad that I've had this experience. So I can talk with them about, you know, what not to do, or of course you tell them what not to do and they do it anyway, but at least plant some seeds so that later on maybe they'll be like, you know what, Mom did say such and such. Tell us a little bit about your book, the Dirty Word book. I love that book. First of all, what does the title mean? And could you share with us some of the dirty words? Because I would like to share that with our wellness women out there.
Well, it's funny, as I said, going back to what we talked about earlier about the self-talk, I realized that there were so many words that meant one thing to the general population and an entirely different thing to women. And I start off the book, I came up with the concept of dirty words. I start off the book with words like dinner. I mean, how many times has a woman heard, Mom, what's for dinner? And you're just like, oh.
You know what? My husband does that to me, and I hate it. And he does to get to me because there's no one here but us. But he'll say, "What's for dinner?" I'm like, "Oh,
I don't know. Look in the fridge and make something." You know. So after decades, when you really put it in that kind of perspective, if you are a woman, it's usually your job, if you have a family, to kind of put the dinner on the table or make sure there's stuff in it. So you've been doing this for decades. So imagine how exhausting that is, taking care. So that's where I started with the dirty words, the common things, that dinner, holidays, vacation. You know, for everybody else, vacation's a great thing. For you, it's just like, oh, you have to get all the packing done and then this and that. So I started it there with those kind of lighthearted things. And I talked to women about how to redefine these dirty words. And one of the ways to do simple things with those kinds of words is to turn some of it over as our families get older, you know, to say every once in a while, I don't know what's for dinner. What do you feel like making? What do you got on your, what do you have? So that's one of the things. But then as I started to think about it, I moved on into other words for women. Words like no, which the word no is hard for women because it's either said to us, trying to keep us from doing something. We can't do it. We say it to ourselves. No, I can't do that. I'm too old. I can't figure that out. I'm not schooled enough. Or we can't say it when we need to say it. No, I can't do that project. No, I can't be on that committee. No, honey, I'm sorry, I can't help you right now. So a lot of these words are really kind of double-edged swords in a lot of ways for women. And I try to talk to women about to really examine these common words that we use every day, that because we've kind of imbued them with a certain meaning, they're almost like triggers for us that set off anxiety. And if you tweak them a little bit and you tweak the way you deal with them and the way you allow others in your life to expect you to deal with them, it allows you to find some space and some time and walk away from them a little bit and get a little bit of perspective on life. And again, find some of that joy and humor. So
yes. I love what you said about resetting expectations. Many times the expectations we place on ourselves are so far above the bar and so far above what is really required, but that's what we do. I do that to myself. Just this morning, I'm an early riser, and I feel guilty if I'm awake at 4 a.m. and not out of bed, making coffee, making smoothies, working out, going for the walk, doing meditation, walking my gratitude journal, getting ready to work, signing on the computer. And then sometimes it'll be like about 9 or 10 o'clock, and I'm like, gee, I'm really tired.
I'm so tired then.
And somebody will say, well, Linus, haven't you been up since 4 o'clock? And you probably had a full day already. It's 6 hours have gone by.
Exactly.
That's right. There's nothing really wrong with me taking a nap, watching a movie, going back to bed, what a concept,
Absolutely.
Taking down that expectation.
Well, that's what I came when I mentioned earlier the word fine, and you just said everything has to be done to the nth degree. And in the book, the Dirty Words book, I talk about Facebook. How many times do you ever say something is fine on Facebook? You don't. It has to be awesome or fantastic or fabulous or everything superlatives. So we've schooled, like the superlative police will kick you off if you say anything is fine. We've schooled ourselves to believe that everything has to be laced in superlatives. And it doesn't. As long as we get some things done, as long as you get to the end of the day and you've accomplished some things, if you decide to take a nap in there somewhere or watch Say Yes to the Dress while you're sitting and eating chocolate, that's one of my go-tos, it's fine. And you need those moments to restore yourself. You can't keep going all the time. And everything doesn't have to be done to the nth degree. You're setting an impossible standard.
Yes, that's very true. And, as I was just listening to myself, thinking about all the things that I do in the morning to be,
Here I am. I'm
right. It is exhausting. It is exhausting. And I need to give myself more of a break. You want to use that wisdom. When you're pushing yourself.
You do.
And when that voice that you should be listening to is telling you need to stop. And even if, and I know some people don't have the ability like we might to be able to take a nap in the middle of the day because they're working for someone who's they're working away out of the home. But there are ways that you can stop and allow yourself to go within to refresh yourself, whether it's meditating for just 3 or 4 minutes, or even if you are closing your eyes for just a moment, just to be still and to kind of go back in and reconnect. We give so much of ourselves out in different areas all the time that we don't replenish. We don't give ourselves back into ourselves in terms of just giving back to us. We don't do that. Or if we do that, we have a tendency to feel guilty about it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's one of the worst things. This idea that self-indulgence is a guilty pleasure. I mean, self-indulgence is necessary. I often try to say to myself, if I were my girlfriend talking to me, what would I say? You'd probably say, are you kidding me? You're fabulous. You're amazing. Look at all these things you've done. Now go sit down and take a break. Go sit on the beach for a while. Go read a book. Or even going back to what we were saying about our relationship with other people, even say, I'm not making dinner tonight. I'm tired. There's Cheerios in the cabinet. That never killed anybody. Eat Cheerios.
Oh, I wish I had the courage to do that when I was raising my 4 daughters. I mean, literally, there would be hours on end before I would take off my heels and my jacket from my suit. I'd come in, I'd get them started on their homework, I'd put a load of clothes into the washing machine, one in the dryer, I start chopping because I wouldn't cook anything out of a box or anything out of a pan, chopping and cooking and all this stuff. And one day my girlfriend was over after work, she stopped by, and finally she said, Dennis,
stop it! Oh, that's good and holy. Stop!
She said, you are exhausting me. How do you do this? And I was so used to going into automatic all the time and thinking that everything was okay that I really never gave much thought in terms of how I was doing it. But what happened 25 years later, come to find out, I had this anxiety disorder.
Yes.
And it all had to do with my feeling to the need to control the outcome. That there was never going to be any surprises, that I got this, I can do this, I can do that. And it took its toll. And, for anyone who's listening to this, let me tell you right now, that thinking that you're all that and being all that is sometimes costly. It's okay to just be okay.
Okay.
It's okay just to be fine. It's okay. That is not one of the dirty words necessarily. Right. Share with us, Mary Fran, one of your favorite dirty words. You shared a couple more. What are some of the other ones that you have in the book?
I think my favorite dirty word for women is balance. I always say some man must have came up with the term work-life balance because we would never do that to ourselves. There's no such thing. I mean, first of all, balance means that everything is exactly the same. And first of all, that's boring. And when does that happen? It never, ever happens. So I tell women, do you remember that commercial back in the 70s, that woman that was singing, it was a perfume commercial. I can bring home the bacon, fry it.
Yes.
And then she
up in the party.
I'm like, no, I'm sorry. Bacon is bad for you. Frying raises your cholesterol. And if some guy needs me to remind him he's a man at the end of the day, he's going to have to go somewhere else because I'm tired. I forget all that. So when I talk about balance, I say, think of those Macy's Thanksgiving parade balloons that people are always hanging on. And one side they're tilted this way, and one time they're tilted that way. And balance is like that. You have to look at it as a bigger picture thing. Because depending on what's going on in your life at any given moment, it's going to be shifted in different directions. And you have to be okay with that. You can't be doing everything to the nth degree all the time. And if you let some things go every once in a while, like you said, that's okay. And we need to teach our daughters and the younger generation that if some night you feel like sticking a box of Cheerios and a gallon of milk on the table and saying, there's dinner, do it.
I love that. That is so funny because to this day, we didn't eat much cereal in our house, and I thought I was being such a great mom by not giving them cereal and things like that. But what I didn't realize and find out until much later on, they would get it at their friends' houses when they
They
spent
get
the night.
it and think they get a treat and think you were depriving them, you know?
So now they all have it in their cabinets. So much for that, you know. And when I go to their house, I eat it.
You eat cereal.
Some of the things that we put on ourselves, some of the expectations, some of the rules that we create for ourselves are self-imposed.
Yes.
And if we really want to enter into the ultimate self-care and self-love, yeah, take a look at some of that stuff. See what the negotiables are. How important is it really? How much is it actually adding value to your present life, you know? And some of that stuff you'll find out it's really ultimately not important. No one else is judging you by it. We are our strictest judges.
Exactly.
And if anyone else is, so what? That's their issue, not yours. I've taught myself to think what you think about me is really none of my business.
None of my business. Exactly.
You
There's
know,
a woman that wrote a book, and Oprah, I always thank Oprah for everything. She's my guru, but she brought it to my attention. A woman named Susie Welch, who wrote a book called The 10-10-10 Rule. And I talk about that in my book. And what she says is, look at what you're doing right now. How important is it going to be in 10 minutes, 10 months, and 10 years? And if you're getting yourself worked up over something that's really not going to matter in 10 minutes, it's time to walk away from that, you know? And it really gives you a perspective in a moment
yes.
on how to look at those things in your life that are, like we go back to the Cheerios example. If you threw that on the table, your kids and my kids would have thought it was Christmas. I mean, they would have thought it was Christmas morning. So we also have to stop putting our own parameters on everything for everyone else. Yes. And recognize that everybody's got their own version of what's fine and what works and what doesn't. And let things go. Lighten up on ourselves. Use the 10-10-10 rule. And remember to find some joy and recognize that where we are, where we're standing, we have a great deal of wisdom. We need to allow ourselves to acknowledge that and pat ourselves on the back for getting here.
Absolutely. And Mary Fran, let me pat you on the back there for just all the wit and wisdom that you have shared with us and through your books. All of them are fantastic. Please share with everybody. First of all, do you have the covers they can see? Can you see them?
I do. This is Not Ready for Granny Panties, the 11 Commandments for Avoiding Granny Panties. And then this one is the Woman's Book of Dirty Words.
And they're both fantastic. Where can people buy the books?
They are available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Barnes & Noble will also get it into the store for you if you ask them for it. And they can visit me at my website, maryfranbontempo.com, and the blog, notreadyforgrannypanties.com. And I'd love to hear from your viewers.
Fantastic. Mary Fran, thank you so much for being on Wellness Woman. You always make me laugh, and it's always such a pleasure. I'm really honored to be able to call you my friend, and I'm so glad. Let's stay in touch and start comparing grandbaby stories.
That's right. And I always enjoy you so much, Liz. It's always a joy. We always have such fun together. So thank you. I am equally honored to call you my friend and to have been on today. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, all of the listeners and all the viewers. Make sure you come and check us out at wellnesswoman.xyz. That's where you can see the show streaming live. We're here usually every Tuesday right around 9 o'clock or so Pacific Standard Time. I have wonderful women just like Mary Fran that are sharing with you their wit and also their wisdom. Thanks so much for joining us. This is Lennis from Praiseworks and Wellness Woman 40 and Beyond e-magazine. And before I sign off, if you haven't done it yet, sign up for the Intuition Mastery Summit. It's still going on until the end of June. 28 experts from the field of intuition sharing with you how to enhance the inner voice that you want to listen to. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you again